Friends, let's start with Unit 2 of the pharmacology subject. So, the Unit 2 is based on topics like drug absorption and distribution. So, drug absorption is a very important step whenever a drug enters the body. So, when there is proper absorption of the drug, only then the drug is able to elicit its response to the body. So, absorption is the passage of the drug from the site of its administration into the blood. So, here this term is very important. It's the entry of the drug into the blood stream, that is called absorption. So, wherever it can be. So, if you have popped in a pill or if you have took a injection, all all steps require all the mode of administrations require absorption. Only mode of administration where absorption is not required is when the drug is directly given in IV, that is intravenously. So examples can of this can be the saline that is uh, administered to extremely weak patients. So that is absorption. Absorption in that process is skipped. Or any other uh, any other route of administration, such as enteral, that is eating a pill, or getting a getting a intramuscular or subcutaneous injection, that will require to get absorbed in the bloodstream. Then the next term is distribution. So distribution means, as the name is suggesting us, so it is the drug reaching to different tissues. So it can be the tissues in the liver, in the muscles, in brain, everywhere the wherever the drug is getting is reaching, that is within the body, the fat adipose cells, etc., everywhere, the kidney cells, everywhere the blood has to reach. So that is distribution of the drug. So to reach this, to there is a barrier between whenever the drug has to get absorbed from for say intestines to the bloodstream. So the body has made biological barriers or the membranes, etc., by which the drug has to cross and reach the bloodstream. And there are some other processes that drug undergoes, that is plasma protein binding and tissue storage, that is accumulation of the drug in certain tissues, or metabolism, that is its modification and make the especially the liver does job. It modifies the drug in such a way that the drug is not able to elicit its pharmacological response. And uh, one more one more step that the drug can encounter, that is making it rendering it useless for or not available for giving eliciting a pharmacological action, is excretion. So we have to see today that how the drug absorption distribution occurs. So before understanding that, let's first understand the membrane or the plasma membrane, cell membrane, that is there in our body. All the cells in the body will have this cell membrane. It is obviously made up of lipid bilayer, and it has a lot of receptors embedded in it. Channels, receptors, etc., are embedded in the membrane of the cells. So according to the property of the drug will be able to pass from the lipid bilayer, or it has certain receptors within the cell membrane, or it has some channels which can carry the drug molecule inside the cell. So how well the drug can enter a cell, that is decided, or uh, that is decided by the drug partition, lipid water partition ratio of any drug. So what is that? It is the ratio of the polarity and the non-polarity of any drug molecule. So if it is highly polar, it will easily pass the membrane. If it is non-polar, it is sorry, it's the other way around. If it is non-polar, it is easy to pass the drug from outside of the cell to the inner cytoplasm, and if it is very polar, for the drug to pass into the lipid bilayer. So whenever a drug is all 99.9% of all the drugs are either weak acidic or weak basic. There are never strong acid or never strong basic molecules used as drugs. So if it depends on the pKa of the drugs and the lipid water coefficient of the drug. So you can see here, they have given us an example. This is a example of weak acid, acetaminophen. It is none other than our paracetamol, which is a very regular painkiller. If so, how it can cross the, see here, it is the intestinal lumen, how well it can cross it. Then there comes the plasma, that is blood, and then stomach. So how well it can go from one membrane, one section to another section, it has been demonstrated here. Then this another weak base, diazepam. Diazepam is a centrally acting drug, means it is going to go and work on the brain tissues. Mostly it gives us actions like tranquilizing, that is sleep inducing, etc. So this slide here mentions how drug can travel from one in different forms. Let us see, this image is being taken from the textbook itself. So even if it is blurred here, you can go back and see the textbook. So let's see different types of transports a drug can undergo to enter a cell. So these are the examples of transports. Then this is the membrane. This is the membrane which is going to be the barrier between the cell, cytoplasm, and the outside of the cell. So if it is diffusion, so diffusion is non-electrolyte and weak base, weak acids can undergo diffusion. It is the very simple mechanism. The change in concentration is going to lead to that is going to make the drug molecules enter the membrane. They will cross the membrane because they are weak acid or weak base, means they will be a lot the non polarity of their in them would be higher, and hence they would be able to cross the lipid bilayer and enter the cytoplasm. The next method is filtration and bulk flow. So filtration involves whenever there are pores in the membrane, what does this molecule do? They go and pass through the cell. They are enough small that they can pass through the cell. They are not too much large. So you can see here, these large molecule is not able to enter this membrane, but these small molecules are able to cross the membrane because they are smaller in size and polar, they can go through the channels or pores within the membrane. Then comes endocytosis. Endocytosis means the cell will make vesicles which are going to pick the molecules from one side and transport it to the another side. So these vesicles are will be responsible for taking, it's like a boat. A boat is able, you are this is a river. Consider if it is a river, the boat is going to make pick these molecules from here and drop them on the other side. So that is what endocytosis is. Then we come to the next transport mechanism, that is ion pair. So ion pair would be for the drugs which are in ionic condition, or they are carrying a charge. So there is some oppositely charged molecule outside the cell. So that if the drug is in negative charge and there is some another opposite charged molecule, they both will bind, and they will be able to travel through this membrane. And then when they are inside the cell, they have crossed the membrane inside the cytoplasm, they will again dissociate themselves and their function will be continued as it is. Then there is one more type of mechanism, that is facilitated or active diffusion. So here facilitated or active diffusion means other all these endocytosis, ion pair, filtration and bulk flow and diffusion, all these were of the passive type, means energy was not involved in here, any form of energy like ATP etc. But whenever it comes to facilitated or active diffusion, it means the energy is involved, there is some ATP or GTP involved in there, and they can only enter the cell whenever there is some type of specialized mechanism which can help them fly from one point to the other point. So facilitated diffusion can be of different types also. So a simple, you can see here one of this is the example type of vesicle, not exactly a vesicle but a type of vesicle. Then there is one more example, that is a carrier. So the carrier would be present in the membrane itself, and the carrier can hold, it's like a lock and key mechanism again. So the carrier can hold a identify a drug and bind to it. So you can see here there is a binding of carrier and the drug, and this is now a drug carrier complex, and it is here it has been it is carried from within the membrane to the another side of the membrane, where the carrier will dissociate in itself, and the carrier will now get again free, and it will be able to pick up new drug molecule, and this drug molecule is able to go and elicit its pharmacological response to the required cell receptor. That is whenever the receptor for the or the active site of the cell is active site for the drug is within the cell. Then we come to the other part, that is drug absorption, and how is it what happens after a drug is administered. So be it parenteral, oral etc., the drug is whenever the drug is administered in a whenever you are being pricked by a needle or you have popped in a pill, it goes into the plasma, that is the blood. In the plasma, it can get binded to certain protein molecules, so proteins such as albumin, globulin, etc. Or the and the rest of the drug which is in free form can go to, it gets distributed at different sites, so it can go and get stored in the tissues such as the adipose tissues or the lung tissue, liver tissue, etc. Or it can go to the site of action, that is cell receptors, the actual place where this drug is useful. And it can go to the metabolism pathway, where in the metabolism it goes to liver, lungs or GI tract. Also sometimes they carry out chemical reactions in such a way that the drug is not in the original form, or it is not effective, or it cannot go and bind to the cell receptor it was supposed to bind, and that metabolite can be excreted. And also some of the free drug from the blood plasma is excreted with the help of kidneys, that is urine, or air, that is lungs, or sweat or feces, etc. And n number of ways excretion can also occur. Then we come to the next topic, that is so in the comment section or the test that I will ask you, so you have to tell the pore size of the pore which allow filtration, and which molecules can pass through it. So in the comment section you have to answer these questions. All these, whoever is going to answer these questions will get internal marks, so make sure that you watch the video completely and answer the questions. In the bulk flow you have to answer that which drugs can cross the blood brain barrier and which can't, so which system they can affect and which cannot. Then we come to the topic, that is absorption of the drug within different tracts, alimentary tracts. So alimentary tract is the digestive tract starting from the mouth to the rectum. So how are the drugs absorbed through that? Here the absorption is rapid if the lipid water partition coefficient. So why are we studying here? Why do we need to study lipid water partition coefficient? It is because of the bipolar nature of our cell membrane. So how well the drug can get distribute within the water, and how well it can go and distribute within a organic or a lipid type of solvent, such as, generally the experiments are conducted with the help of octanol. So octanol is the liquid which is able with which we are performing the experiment to determine any drugs lipid water partition coefficient. Also a lot of time it will be referred as partition coefficient. It is the same, the lipid water partition coefficient. So the pKa of the drug and the lipid water partition coefficient of the drug are very important determinants. So such as examples is nicotine. Nicotine is a weak base, so its peak blood levels rise for 4 times faster when it is absorbed from the mouth. So see, it is weak base and the pH of mouth is a bit acidic, hence and the pKa of nicotine is 8.5. so because of that, it is easier to absorb nicotine from the mouth than when the nicotine is in the gastrointestinal tract, such as in stomach, where the pH is around 1 to 5, because here unionized drug in the mouth would be higher than the unionized drug in the stomach. So in the alimentary canal also there are different areas such as the tongue. So whenever the drug is placed under the tongue, it is called a sublingual administration. So the drugs of angina, whenever there is a heart attack, the doctor advises patients to keep a nitroglycerin tablet in between the bottom of the mouth and tongue. In that area, that is it is called a sublingual administration, because from that area there is a lot of blood flow and the blood can absorb the drug easily. Hence in the sublingual area, emergency drugs such as nitroglycerin, which is a coronary vasodilator that is used for heart attack, is administered. Then there is one more area, that is the cheek, or the place between the gum and the cheek, that is known as buccal cavity. So some of the drugs are also, some of the formulations are made in such a way that they will, even if you place them within that buccal cavity, they are going to dissociate, and the blood capillaries within the cheek are going to absorb all the drug and carry out their effect. So these are two important or emergency situation where the drug, it does not need to go in the stomach and give us the effect. They can be absorbed in the mouth area itself. So let's see the next site of absorption, that is the stomach. So stomach is actually not a primary, for its function is actually not absorption. So the pH of the stomach is as low as 1 to 2. So here only weak bases can be absorbed, such as sorry, it cannot be absorbed, such as the weak base, such as this weak base such as diazepam. It cannot be absorbed because at this pH it will be highly ionized. And also the factors affecting the gastrointestinal absorption is the volume ingested apart from the drug, that is how much other food is also present. Then what type of meal was it, what is the viscosity, if it is highly thick, like very viscous food is there, or water is there. Then physiological state and the body position, if the person is sleeping, then it changes its, if it changes its gastric emptying time. So your gastric emptying time is very important. Then absorption of the drugs from the small intestine. So small intestine are the place where all the major absorption is taken place. So all the cells in the cell epithelial lining in the small intestine are known as enterocytes. Enterocytes ka matlab, whenever we are referring the digestive tract, we will refer it, a lot of time it is referred as enteral. Enteral, it is all, a lot of time it will be mentioned as enteral, so you don't have to be confused. What is it? It is the digestive tract. So anything related to the digestive tract would be will be referred as enteral, or here they are referred, it is the epithelial lining, that is it, they are cells, so they are referred to as enterocytes. So most of the drugs in the are absorbed from the intestine from the proximal jejunum. So proximal jejunum means the part which is immediately after stomach, 1 to 2 meters uh, after the stomach area, that is the proximal jejunum. And here in the small intestine all over there is a high amount of blood flow and absorption is very quick in here. So problems such as diarrhea will change the rate of absorption from the small intestine, that is the gastric emptying time is also going to affect it. Then we come to the large intestine. So large intestine, very little absorption is going to happen in here. So majority all the drugs which are given in the way within the large intestines, they are generally administered in the rectum, and suppositories etc are given in this suppository drugs are given in the form of suppository. And those drugs which can cause gastric irritation, or if a person is undergoing gastrointestinal surgery, or it is continuously vomiting, the person is continuously vomiting, or uncooperative patients such as children's or unconscious people, or the people who are in not a normal mental state, they can be administered in from here. uh, so as the important factors affecting rate of absorption of any drug is the lipid water content of lipid water partition coefficient. Apart from that, what are the another consideration that we have to take before whenever the drug is administered enterally, means in the gastrointestinal tract, that is the gastric emptying time. uh, so if the gastric emptying time is very fast, then absorption would be very slow. Like very less absorption would be happening, all of the drug will end up excreting. Then the intestinal motility, same way, the same way I told you that it is going to get excreted, is the same way here also it is going to get excreted. Then food, what type of food is there? So for this, whenever you have gone to doctors, there are certain uh, instructions that the doctor gives, that if you are having this particular medicine, you don't have to eat something for half an hour, or you don't have to drink milk with it along with it, or a certain type of food such as pickles are not allowed. These are very common instructions that are given for, because some of the drugs such as the antibiotics like tetracycline they form complex with calcium ions within the food or milk that you have consumed along with it, and then it is rendered, uh, it cannot be uh, absorbed by the cells, absorbed by the membrane, and hence the drug will pass away as it is, and you will not get its benefit. So that's why it is very important to study the food drug interactions, and the interactions that can lead to the adverse drug events. Then the formulation factor, that is formulation means paracetamol is a drug, and paracetamol tablet is its one of the formulation. Paracetamol in a IV injection is another formulation of it. Paracetamol cream is another formulation of it. So the drug is the same, but its formulation is getting changed according to the purpose that we want the drug to work on. So the formulation factors are going to affect the drug absorption. Then another factor that is going to affect the drug absorption is the metabolism and efflux transporter. Metabolism means, as I said earlier, the some of the what our body does is, drugs for our body are actually foreign or not of our origin, so they consider it, the body cell consider it, that we have to eliminate these particular molecules as soon as possible. So here some enzymes such as the cytochrome P450 enzymes come in, and they try to modify the chemical structure of the drugs in such a way that it is going to render the drug inactive. So if it is paracetamol, then the drug, the body is going to break it down in its constituent, uh, in two other molecules. So this is the cytochrome P450 is going to work and render it inactive. So if it is aspirin, so aspirin is acetyl salicylic acid, so it is broken down into the acetyl group is broken down and the salicylic group is broken down. So if it is if the drug is a ester, then it would be broken into its constituent acid and the alcohol. If it is a amide, then it would be hydrolyzed. So a number of mechanism your body is going to follow and render the drug inactive and make eliminate it as in the body. So please remember this term, that is which enzymes are going to come and play their part is the cytochrome P450 enzymes. Then we come to the other absorption sites, that is lungs. So whenever the drug is given in the form of inhaled gases, aerosols, etc., they are absorbed from the lungs. They are not going to go in the stomach, they will be directly absorbed from the lungs. So it drugs can be given so that local and systematic effects are seen. So local effects include the effects within the lungs, such as if there is edema, that is swelling within a part of lungs. So for that the cells are given, for that inhaled gases are given so that the edema is reduced. Or systemic effect means uh, it means that the drug is going to get absorbed within the bloodstream and it is going to uh, roam around all your body. So that is systemic effect. So drugs which can be inhaled, such as volatile anesthetics or aerosols that are suspended liquid droplets or solid particles, are preferred by this method, because the surface area of lungs, that is the alveoli, surface area is large as 50 to 100 meters square, and the thickness of these membrane is very thin, that is around 0.2 microns. So and also the blood flow to lungs is very much. So that's why this method is also preferred. There is so one of the very important drug that can be administered in this way is insulin to the diabetics people. Insulin generally is taken, if you have ever any diabetic patients at your home and they are being administered insulin, so they have to take it in the form of injections every day, once at least. So that is a very painstaking or very that is injections everybody will not prefer taking every day. So there are some more uh, modifications people have studied and made insulin in the form of nasal sprays, which have not yet been marketed, but still there are some studies done with for this. Insulin has the problem that being insulin being a peptide, it cannot be administered in the body like through the gastrointestinal tract is a form of pill. So that's why it is given in the form of injection, and because giving everyday injection is very painstaking, people have come up with the idea of taking insulin nasal spray. So I want you people to search about it online, and we can talk about it in the comment section and also in the doubt solving session that we meet in. Then we come to the another site of absorption, that is the skin. So the skin is a very the largest organ of our body. One of the fun facts is the weight of skin is itself 5 to 7 kgs within our body. So this is this is why the largest largest organ in the body is actually skin, not the liver. Liver can be can come at the second place when it comes to the largest organ of the body. So the liver so the skin is the very first defense mechanism against of the any of the uh, pathogens and harmful chemicals in our body. So let's see how skin absorption occurs. Skin has different layers such as stratum corneum, dermis, epidermis, etc. Through that also the skin can still absorb what the drug. So the drugs which can get absorbed by the skin layer are would be having high lipid water partition coefficient, means they are going to be uh, more towards the non-polar side than to the polar side. Then we come to the other side, that is drugs from drug absorption from the parenteral administration. So what do you mean by parenteral administration? Enteral means the gastrointestinal tract. So what is parenteral? It is the it is the uh, it is the route which is not related to the mouth, that is the sublingual, buccal cavity, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, uh, and the suppository or the rectum part. It is, and not the skin, not the lungs, up anything other than that. What you can think about when you have eliminated all these, it is obviously the injections. So in the injections also there comes three types, that is intramuscular and subcutaneous, and uh, the last one is the IV. So IV is obviously not going to uh, get affected because of so it is IV means the intravenous means you are administering the drug directly into the bloodstream. So it is eliminating the absorption step totally, but absorption is required in uh, intramuscular and subcutaneous administration. What do you mean by intramuscular? It is a bit deeper, that is the cell the injection needle is pricked a bit deeper in the muscles of your body, and subcutaneous is the uh, injection given in the skin layer, that is the different skin layers are there, dermis, epidermis. So the subcutaneous administration uh, involves administering the drug in those layers of your skin. Then we come to the another part, that is the factors influencing drug distribution. Factors influencing drug distribution are factors such as the uh, means the drug distribution means the drug going to different places in the body. So there are different sections in the body, that is based on the organs. So liver, then muscles, then the adipocyte, then the brain, that is the CNS, then blood. All are different sections when it comes to the drug distribution, and the drug has to go in a specific site to give a particular action. So what are the factors that are going to affect the drug distribution? It is the capillary permeability. Capillary permeability means the thin capillaries the body has after so these are the thin capillaries which are going to provide blood, oxygen to the different cells of the body. So how permeable the capillary is means if it is allowing the cell the drug molecules to pass through or no. Then the blood flow uh, tissue mass ratio, that is the perfusion rate, how well a certain tissue is provided with the blood flow. For example, if it is lungs, the blood flow would be very high, and if it is muscles or tissues like adipocytes, that is the fat cell, it is the blood flow would be relatively lesser in this area. So that is the blood flow tissue mass ratio. Then plasma protein binding and specific organ binding. Plasma protein binding is a very important phenomenon that drugs have to undergo, that is the proteins in the plasma such as the albumin, globulin, alpha glycoproteins are they what happens, the drug can come and bind to these proteins, plasma proteins, and that particular amount of drug, when it is binded to those protein, it is not able to elicit its pharmacological response. Hence it makes the drug, that amount of drug, useless. So we have to consider, whenever we are giving dose to a patient, we have to consider how much amount of plasma protein binding is occurring in the body. Then specific organ binding. So what happens, a lot of drug can are very non-polar in nature, so they come and accumulate in organs such as the adipocytes, that is the fat cells, and they come accumulate, there is and they have no effect over there, they're just coming and sitting there, there's nothing, no function that they are doing. So that is making, again that amount of drug is going to make it useless. So that is so in the same way specific organ binding can also occur. Some of the drugs can just go and sit in the liver tissue or in the lung tissue and make, then that amount of drug is not available for the pharmacological action. Then pH differences, so that means that the pH within, consider pH between the blood plasma and muscle tissue cytoplasm would be obviously different. So that is going to change the distribution of the drug. So pH changes, and transport mechanism available means if there is no carrier of the drug, if the drug is specifically requiring carrier and there is no carrier available, then the transport mechanism available for the drug is not there, hence it is not getting absorbed. And permeability into specific tissue membrane. So permeability is very important. For example, if if it comes to brain, any drug has to come and affect your brain, it has to cross a certain barrier, that is the blood brain barrier. Blood brain barrier is like a very strong gate within for the drugs to cross the gate. It is nearly impossible. Only very highly non-polar drugs can penetrate this particular gate. So that blood brain barrier is, so these type of permeability characteristics are changed, especially for the barriers such as the blood brain barrier, etc., causing the changes in the absorption, distribution of the drug. So next we come to binding of the drug to the plasma proteins. As I have mentioned earlier also, there are different proteins in the plasma of our body, in the blood. So these, whenever the whenever the drug is getting binded to any of the plasma protein, it is unbound and it cannot diffuse through the capillary wall, and it is not able to go to the site of action and uh, elicit the action. It is not available for systemic effects, it is not available for the metabolism, neither it is available for excretion. So let's see which drugs, which proteins are binding to which drugs. So albumin, whenever we come to blood proteins, first protein that comes into mind is the protein albumin globulin. So albumin is a very important contributor to drug binding. Albumin has a net negative charge at the uh, in the normal pH of the serum. So it can interact with drugs which are positively and negatively charged. Both the charged drugs can be interacted with. Many highly albumin bound drugs are poorly soluble in the water, and they go and bind to the hydrophobic sites of the albumin. So the protein binding to the albumin is non-specific, and the drug with a higher affinity, uh, more affinity towards albumin can displace the drug which has a little lesser affinity towards albumin. So what happens when there is some diseased state such as hyperalbuminemia or hypoalbuminemia, means high amount of albumin or low amount of albumin, or uremia or bilirubinemia, etc. At that time there is changed binding of the albumin to the drugs. So uremic patients, the patients who have a lot of amount of urea, urea in the body or uric acid in the body, uh, they tend to bind to a lot of acidic drugs such as penicillin, sulfonamide, salicylates, or uh, it is reduced, the amount of binding to the penicillin, sulfonamide, salicylates and barbiturate is reduced. So even if we are giving them less amount of drug, it will, when, because there is no plasma protein binding, uh, they will be more in available for pharmacological action, and so hence we have to give a lesser amount of these drugs to the uremic patients. Then lipoproteins are in the two form. uh, Lipoproteins are in the form of uh, it depends. Lipoproteins are two forms, that is the LDL and HDL. So sometimes the drug can also bind to them. It depends on the lipid content of the drugs, how much lipid content the drug has. So higher lipid content would be having more of the non-polar binding, the lower lipid content would be having more of the non-polar binding, and so on. Then we come to alpha acid glycoprotein. Alpha acid glycoprotein, as the name suggests, it is acid. So binding, more binding towards the basic drug would be seen. So a lot of drugs that are psychotherapeutic, uh, they are chlorpromazine, imipramine, spiroperidol, and nortriptyline, etc., can be binding more to these alpha glycoproteins. It can also the amount of alpha glycoproteins can also change. So increased alpha glycoprotein in traumatic conditions such as then in surgery, stress, injury, rheumatoid arthritic, and celiac disease occurs. So in these cases, the doctor has again to reconsider the amount of drug the he has to administer to patients. Then we come to the last part of this topic, that is the physiological barriers to drug distribution. So as I mentioned you earlier, barrier is like the it is going to stop the drug from traveling from one section to another. So it can be stopping the drug from the capillaries to a certain uh, hepatocyte, or in the lungs, that is alveolar cells, or in the brain cell, or in the pancreas cell, or in the kidney cell. So there, according to the permeability of the barrier and the requirements there, there are different barriers created by the body itself to make it safe. Even if there comes a drug which is very potent, still it cannot enter very important organs such as the brain. So let's see one of a few different barriers to the drug distribution. So first is the blood brain barrier, very very important barrier. It is very very less permeable to water soluble drugs. It is very and too much permeable to a non-polar or the lipid soluble drugs. So in this blood brain barrier, it is like a uh, there is no pore, nothing like a channel or a carrier within that blood brain barrier. It is like a lot of folds of cloth that are kept. So the drug has to pass in the from each and every section. So a lot of folds of cells are placed, and uh, the drug has to make way from cell membrane of one cell to the cell membrane of other cells. And if there are 4 to 5 layers of such cells, the drug has to be really very very soluble in the lipid, so that it can pass through the lipid bilayer. So that's why it is very difficult for all the drugs to pass through the blood brain barrier. So lot of high lipid insoluble or the highly unionized drugs will obviously fail in while entering the blood brain barrier. And after entering the crossing the blood brain barrier, the cells go into the section of the cerebrospinal fluid, that is the fluid that is present within the brain cells. So all the brain tissue and the spine tissue would be having a special fluid, that is the cerebrospinal fluid, which has a pH of around 7.35. So here a lot of weak organic bases only can pass So here drugs, so the drugs which are affecting your brain, so the tranquilizers, the barbiturates, the psychedelic drugs, etc., can come and pass through these areas. And inflammation in this blood brain barrier, encephalitis or meningitis, is going to increase the permeability of the blood brain barrier. So this can allow ionized drugs to pass through this membrane also. Then we come to another barrier, that is the placental barrier. Placental barrier is the barrier between the uh, veins of a mother to the placenta, that is connecting to the fetus in the uterus. So this barrier is also very sensitive, and it does not allow a lot of drugs to pass through. So the drugs which are having high degree of uh, unionization, or they are lipid soluble, etc., will easily pass, but those which are ionized, etc., will not be able to pass. Then the last barrier that we need to study is the blood testis barrier. So there is a barrier between the sertoli section cell junctions, and there is a PGP efflux transporter that is present in here, that only allows certain drugs to pass through and other to not. So one of the problem here that occurs to people who are suffering from testis cancer, etc., is this PGP protein efflux is going to stop the transport of chemotherapeutic agents into the testes. So that is why it is going to hinder the treatment of the neoplasm. So this brings us to the end of this topic. Please, along with the video, please read the book, and we will also take a doubt solving session and test on this topic. If you have any doubts, you can contact me, or just we can also solve them in the doubt solving sessions that we will arrange for.